attorney and want to and two become attorney general. So she's sort of battle hardened, and I think she'll support Biden's bid very well.
Very good. Any other comments?
Yeah, I would like to make a comment. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. When she was running for president position or candidate president position with Joe and other participants, I don't remember how many of them was, almost 19. I noticed that she doesn't understand the economy and she is really weak in economic issues. That's my impression. What do you think? Am I right or I'm wrong?
Well, I think, oh, I gotta raise my hand. Oops. I'll raise my hand. What happened there?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay. You know, she supported the union line on most of her attorney general meetings. And even as a senator, she supports the union line. So that's consistent with the Democratic approach, the governance. And I think that you're right, she's very articulate. She really supports a floundering campaign, which I thought Joe Biden was conducting. And I think she'll be a very formidable president, maybe not till 2024, which is then eligible to run.
She has some big contributors too that will be helpful to providing financial assistance. I read something that I found rather surprising, and I think you will too, that one of the contributors to her campaign when she ran for Attorney General was President Trump and his daughter. He gave a total of, I think, $8,000 between the two of them.
Joe?
But no, Joe, Trump also contributed $4,000 to her opponent at that time. So it's kind of, he was playing both ends. That's where he come out ahead. Because at that time, I believe his college that he put his name to, that for-profit college he put his name to, was under investigation by the Attorney General's office of California. And that's why he contributed.
Joe, on the visit, hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
hear you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello. One thing, besides watching the speech or other things, I was trying to see what was the reaction of Trump on this person. And usual, I was not surprised to see reactions on language, using word nasty, and really repeating words that are sound of glory to the white supremacy and to the right wings. So nobody can deny the ability of stealing the people of Trump, but this case is continuing to do an approach, not presidential, but of denigration. And you go to golf when the pandemic is strike around, I don't think it's a good sign for the guy who lives on the corner or struggle for job. So I think, I hope he's killing himself or something. What is real disgusting, the reactions of the Republicans and towards what's happening in the nation now. They don't have a care of anybody. They don't give a damn. They go to play golf and the big their business. That's really making my boiling the blood. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, I have a comment. I think she's a great candidate. If one believes, as I do, that you'd like to see the president lose, she hits all the things that you want in a Democratic candidate. Democrat Party is all about identity politics. She hits female, she hits black, she hits Asian. She's worked hard. She's a tough lady. And I think the way the campaign will go, they'll use her to indict and to challenge President Trump. And Biden will sort of be above the fray, a little bit of, Papa Joe, he's for everybody. And I think they'll make a good pair, and I think they have a good chance of winning. Not that I'm so favorite of Democratic policies, but I would just like to see a different president. Right, thank you.
I can't wait until she debates against Pence. I think she'll rip him apart.
I wouldn't be so sure about that.
She's pretty.
Very articulate spokesperson for the administration. In fact, he does a better job of it than I think Trump does.
She's very quick-witted.
Certainly very loquacious. And unfortunately, Joe Biden doesn't impress me as a speaker. It's terrible. Besides his gaffes, we all have gaffes. But as a spokesperson for the country, I think he hardly represents the best we can offer.
How many people think that even though she's vice president, that she may be really calling the shots for Biden?
I think she will.
Absolutely, yes.
I think certainly
she.
I think she's going to have more power than the typical vice president for two reasons. Because she's a very strong personality, very intelligent, and Biden is Joe is sort of laid back at this point in life. He's certainly not as sharp as he used to be. Go ahead, John.
Well, yeah, I think there's quite a bit of evidence that he's actually in some stage of Alzheimer's, and he's not going to, I think he's not going to be president for too long. I think if they win the election, Kamala Harris will actually step in, and that Biden was, when he was talking with her to welcome her onto the ticket, he was holding his cell phone
Bob Loop, you're going to be next.
He was holding his cell phone upside down. He had a script in his hand. And the script was, he was following the script, and the script was edited out of a video by CNN. So his mental capabilities are greatly in question.
Yeah, you sort of preempted a question I was going to ask, and that is, how many people think that she's going to become president within the next 4 years? During Biden's tenure, assuming that he's elected. Bob Loop, you have it.
Yeah, I just wanted to, question John in terms of how he comes up with that, especially when the President of the United States is holding the Bible upside down with his little jaunt that he did from the White House. You could say the same thing about him. I mean, I don't know. I mean, she's younger than both of them. Not that that always makes a difference, but I think she'll be right there with, I think he gave a pretty good talk last night. And I think it's been made very clear by him that she will be in the last person in the room when he makes decisions, whatever that might be. And I thought that was a good point.
Yeah, I agree with Bob. With Bob, it's a good point. She is a good speaker, a very effective speaker. But what do you think about the intention to increase taxes and also to switch to green energy. Is this programs popular with people?
I will put this point. Many of these programs are certainly not popular with me, but I feel we have a dangerous man in the White House, a man who refuses to even acknowledge that the Russians are tampering with our elections, a man who refuses to put extra help and extra monies in the post office when everybody knows there's going to be a problem coming up in November with the mail-in voting. He should not be president. I'm not a Democrat, but I do think we should have a switch in administration.
You know, Will Rogers said over 100 years ago, I never voted for somebody. I always voted against.
One question, can I, Bob?
Yeah, go ahead, Franco.
The question that's part of my head is, it was somebody before said about the economy. Now, with 50 million people out of a job, okay, temporary, but the ability in the last 6 months to rebound has been demonstrated everywhere impossible. 60% of small business, restaurants down. So now Trump wants to eliminate all the tax. What is the plan to a kind of, for instance, I was looking yesterday what the European Union has done in comparison to. They did a Marshall Plan, 30-year plan, loan and grants based on education, information, and health. These are the 3 pillars of all the 20 countries they are doing. Here in the States, we are talking, and nobody has the time to take a pencil and a pen and calculator and to make a budget for the next 10 years, what we need to have a better industry, a better health, a better education, a better roads. Nobody. No. By executive order, I'm sorry to say, is not a way an economist run a country.
I think Jerry wants to say something.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would just like to refer back to John's comments, and I have to agree with him 100%. And I personally, and then you brought up how long is it going to be before Kamala Harris is president, and that's a good bet. I give him maybe 2, at most 3 years before they invoke the 25th Amendment on Joe Biden. That's my comment. I have one more question. It's a question. And
Go ahead, Jerry.
The campaign and the Democratic Party seem to be focused around socialism. And I just wonder what makes socialism so attractive to so many people in this country? I mean, it has ruined so many nations. Prime example, Russia, obviously, Cuba, and now Venezuela, Venezuela was the richest country in South America until the socialist dictator came in, and he's totally destroyed the country. And I can see that happening here.
I can answer your question, Jerry. Can I speak?
Sure.
Okay.
You're going to explain why socialism is good for us?
Yeah, because I have experience. I have experience living under socialism. So for people, attractive features of socialism is free education, free medicine, guaranteed employment. Those are very big issues for people who don't think long and far. They do not correlate free stuff with the poverty. And that's how idea of socialism find its way to hearts of people, and they vote for socialistic ideas. That's unfortunate, attractiveness of socialism, this short-term thinking, which bring people to destroying economy and living in poverty. But they don't think, simple people don't think long-term. Remind me of my friend who was businessman, wanted to arrange pension plan in his company. But of course, to have a pension plan, people have to outlay certain portion of their paycheck for the pension. This idea was voted down. Why? Because people, his employees, wanted to have big paycheck now than to have a pension long term. That's how mind of people work.
Capitalism versus socialism. I believe the millennial in that age, and then the younger ones, and maybe a little older, found that capitalism failed them. They ended up, they started out life after school with huge debts. Their salaries have not progressed accordingly to the upper 10%. The upper 10% has made tremendous advancements in their salaries and their incomes because of the Federal Reserve's policies on interest rates. And they have the money, and they always have the money to invest to make more money, where the other people don't. So socialism looks like a wonderful ticket for a social or governmental policy. I'm reminded of communism was in the 30s. My uncle was a card-carrying communist in the 30s. And he was a labor lawyer. And he told me that the main thing he was is because it seemed like utopia to them. They provided food, they provided medical security, and they did all the things that people want. Safe neighborhoods, because it was a police state. So safe neighborhoods, and that was attracting them. And of course, now we don't have safe neighborhoods anymore because of the protests that are going on continuously. That's a sad part where capitalism has failed these people. And I really think that all we're doing here in this next election, if say Donald Trump wins another 4 years, we kick the can down another 4 years before the socialist agenda comes to take place. Because I think the Democrats will win in 2024, if not in 2020. So that's my take.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you, Lloyd.
You've had the experience of living in a socialist country and in a capitalist country. You came here. Did you like it better when you were in Russia?
Joe, it's no comparison how much life here is better in all regards compared to the Soviet Union. I can give you some numbers. I had one pair of shoes, I had one suit, and every day after work for 2 hours, I had to run among different stores to put food on my table to feed my son. That's how poor it was. And waiting line to get a government apartment was 10 years. Waiting line to get a car was 10 years. And to get an apartment, some people were not able to get it for all their life. That's how, miserable socialism is. And that is demonstrated by Venezuela now.
Right.
The problem is that people don't understand it. They think short term, they don't think long term. Destructive power of the economy.
Socialism looks good on paper, but somehow it doesn't work.
Yeah, because
Right, you're always on a waiting list for housing, waiting list for healthcare, waiting list, you know,
that's right.
whatever.
Let me point out something. I had a college professor, Dr. Bolkhausen, who was the #3 man in the Bulgarian Communist Party. They sent him on a trade mission to England. He saw what the poorest person in England had compared to what he had given his position in the country. He immediately began planning his escape. True story.
I was in
A
Russia.
lot of stories about what went on in Bulgaria while he was there. There's no doubt that our economic system is far better for the people than a socialistic approach to things. However, we cannot leave people behind, and we seem to have done that a great deal recently. And that's not a good thing. It leads to people saying, I want a revolution, and not good. Everybody has to be included, everybody has to be thought of, and everybody has to be given the opportunity to be successful. And if you don't have that, you lose what our economy and what our country is all about. Lecture over. Thank you.
Very good.
As Khrushchev said, under communism, everybody's equal. Everybody's got half a pair of pants.
You know, it was funny. I visited Soviet Union in 1993 at the height of their famine. It was really very paradoxical. When you walk into a store, if it was a Russian store, the shelves were absolutely empty. I mean, there was nothing there. And so I brought a lot of food with me thinking that, I'm in a famine and wouldn't get any food. Boy, was I wrong. I walked into a foreign currency store called, I believe, something like a Babalushka type of store.
Yes.
And the food was stacked up to the rafters. Unbelievable. That there was no, you would think that you walked in the land of prosperity in the foreign currency store. Of course, the medium of currency at that time was Deutschmarks, which I thought was rather irony. But anyway, this shows the difference. And I believe it was on Tuesdays was the day that the people sold their goods to get some money. And the place was mobbed with people selling things. It was sad. Of course, I've been an American, that wasn't a problem. But that was my experience and exposure to the Soviets system.
Okay, any more comments on Camilla and socialism versus capitalism?
Ed, can I?
May I speak?
Go ahead,
Okay.
Franco.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I think I want to go back to what Ed said before. It's not a question of economic system or not. What I observed, and fortunately in my life, I saw a lot of county plays around the world. What I saw in the last 5-10 years, really going down the drain, the high moral value that America was able to portray everywhere, inside the country, outside the country. Has become a nation of selfishness, ego, income, greedy, and that idea to have an opportunity for everybody is a very far away. So I think somebody else said, if you continue this way, everybody will do a revolution and socialism. If you don't really care and you are a president of all the people of this country and you care about everybody and your administration care and try to make a policy, economic, social, tax that are appropriate for this element, this situation, Of course, you have 1%, and this 1% don't give a damn about the others. And the others, one day, they are fed up, and they go down the street and burn your car. That is my 5 cents intervention.
And thank you for that.
Ringo is worth a dime.
Okay, thank you.
I have a comment to make.
Yeah.
I remember when the Soviet Union fell, and they were doing an interview of people on the street in Moscow, a female reporter. And she asked this woman, "What do you think of socialism collapsing?" And her comments, one of the saddest things I've ever heard somebody say, she said, "Well, who will tell us what to do?" That's pretty profound to me.
Yeah, that's right. That's how people think in socialism. They rely on government to tell them what to do, and they have no.
Had to think. Okay, I'm going to move on to another subject. I want to read something to you, and it's an article in Parents Magazine that I don't normally read, but a copy of it came from my tenant, and I took a peek inside. And the subject that they're discussing is, the title is "School is in Session," parenthetically, kind of. And I want to read, I think it's about 80 words. Where I say children, you guys think in terms of grandchildren. And you may very well be involved with your children in trying to determine what's best for your grandchildren, for your children's children. Should they go to school, go to class, or should they continue learning at home? Over the course of their childhood, your kids get only 13 first days of school. And this one is shaping up to be unlike any other. Maybe they'll attend class physically on certain days, virtually on others. Maybe they'll be learning remotely for the long haul. But whatever the year brings, this is one of those 13 back to school sessions, and we owe it to our kids to make it count. Any comments?
Well, you know, I guess the statistics from the so-called experts is that the ages from, I guess, maybe a year, well, maybe 3 years would be better. 3 to 6 years are very critical for mental development of a child.
Yes.
It requires play, interaction with peer group, and in-face type of activities. We already lost 6 months of that with the lockdown requirements. We're now faced another maybe 6 more months. This semester is also going to be a lost one. Yeah. Later on, the kids are more adept to being socially isolated somewhat, but I think in-face schools, because the other statistics show that children don't really transmit this virus around, and there's a lot of scare tactics going on, and especially from the National Educational Association, to prevent kids from learning is a gigantic social crime that we're experiencing in this country over many years. And I'm just afraid that our educational system, there'll be another lost year for these kids, and they're never going to be made up. And you know, of course, you know, that leads to government support, and hence socialism, whether you call it democratic socialism or not. It's still in effect, that the government is dictating what you're thinking, how you're thinking, and what you could do, what you can't do. I've seen that in many Latin American countries where I've visited, where the government decides what school you go to, what career path you want, based on some tests you take. Oh, okay, you're a good electrical engineer, you'll go to engineering school. And they'll pay for it. I heard that commentary when I was visiting Costa Rica, for instance. So I'm afraid that this country's great asset, which was mind development, is going to be severely curtailed by these continual lockdowns, lockouts, if you want to call them, and no education, because remote education, yes, it takes a very focused person, very focused parents who will supervise, and that's not really the norm.
I think Joe Rackinell's had his hand up for a while.
Hey, Joe, can I add to Lloyd a comment on the education? Sure. I was 30 years ago in a refugees camp in Jordan. And one of the things that was puzzling me was that these people, kids, they were not able to learn anything. So imagine for 1 year, 2 years, you have a civil war and you are refugees, you don't go to school. So one of the things that was tried to do is to create a small school. So this pandemic here has created a condition where the precious aspect of education, that is one of the basic pillars of a growing of a society, of a humanity, of an individual, has been basically, not given the attentions, instead of renting more room, hiring more teachers, so I have a small group, there's no debate, only the fact that nobody wants to think that if you lose this opportunity, 6 months, 1 year from now, you have deprived these kids of this important element necessary for their development to become a good citizen. You are basically pushing down more the crisis where we have been now so far.
Yeah, can I share my observation? Joe, can I?
Yes.
Yeah, I noticed that in one aspect, socialism already present in United States, and that's educational system, because yeah, everybody know that educational system in United States have problem. I on one thing noticed when I came to United States that education in mathematics and science in United States is weak, because my son went to school and he was bringing his homework home, and I noticed that they are falling behind the Soviet Union in education in math and science. But the problem is there is no way to fix it, because educational system in United States is run by teachers union and nobody can do anything about it. No government, no nothing. Am I wrong or am I right?
You are absolutely correct.
That's a problem.
The competition for the school system and the union are the charter schools. In California, the teachers will not go back to school unless they ban the charter schools. How do you like that?
That's a big problem in the United States.
And if we have an educational secretary under the Biden administration, it'd be interesting if he picks Randy Wintergarten, who's head of the National Education Association, basically the largest teachers. What will happen to charter, and more importantly, federally funded school colleges, which is akin to charter schools.
Something that I have mentioned in the past, but in New York City, there are large buildings with thousands of teachers that come every day and they play bridge and bingo and read books and watch TV. They are teachers, but they're not qualified to teach. But you can't lay them off, so you pay them until they retire. And then they're still on our payroll until they die.
Wow, that's great.
That's part of socialism.
Absolutely. That's a
It's
problem.
called the rubber room where they sit all day.
I'd like to make a comment about these school closings. I
Good,
think
Jerry.
it would create a huge difference between the, if you will, underprivileged and the more privileged, because homeschooling is going to be much different in the lower income homes than in the higher income homes. And when they do go back to school, their level of achievement and knowledge is going to be hugely different, and it's going to create a bigger problem than we already have. So I think it's imperative we get schools opened again.
True.
I have a comment.
Yeah, go ahead, Alan.
My grandchildren, they live in Manhattan, and my granddaughter, they're being homeschooled, of course. And my granddaughter said, "Grandpa, can you help me out with something?" "What do you need, sweetie?" "I want to transfer to another school."
Very good child there, Alan.
Very funny.
Yeah.
Joe Roccanella's had his hand up for a long time.
I think parents who can afford it end up sending their children to private schools rather than letting them be exposed to the public system.
Well,
Joe
you know-
Roccanella, why don't you just speak up?
I'll raise my hand. The lower hand.
I can't hear you if you're talking.
Okay.
Bob.
Let me-
Ira, did you have something?
Yeah, I just want to add a comment.
Okay, Bob, go. Okay, Bob, after Ira.
Okay.
Good.
One of my sons is a middle school teacher in the Bronx, in 7th and 8th grade social studies. And it's interesting as to attendance and why at these remote classes. One of his 8th grade classes are honors classes. He gets between 80% to 100% attendance at these classes. His 7th graders are from all over. Maybe he gets 25% attendance. This is in the Bronx. What's the difference? Family. The kids who make it to the honors classes are coming from cultures, particularly Mideastern, that have a strong sense that education is vital to being successful in this world. And the other group comes from varied backgrounds where there is no, in many cases, there are exceptions, no strong family structures. And this is the biggest thing, I think, that creates many of the social problems that we have in the country now.
Yeah, I agree with that. And having a father in the home, kids that have a father do better. Bob Loop, you're next, and then Joe Raccanello after Bob Loop.
Okay, I do agree with Ira. I think it's very important. But I think it's good that the Stamford schools are going to open. The parents were involved in a big survey that took place with that. And they're going to go, kids are going to go, I believe, 2 or 3 days a week. They're going to alternate days, and in between, there'll be home school, or there'll be a home on virtual schooling. And I think that's probably the way to begin to introduce this at this point in time. I think some other states who were a little too aggressive in getting kids back to school, I think that's happened maybe in the South or the Midwest, someplace I heard something that all of a sudden there was an outbreak of COVID-19 and they closed the schools since. So I think this is a good way to introduce it in Stamford, and we'll see how it goes, but we hope for the best. That way the kids can get some social interaction. Supposedly they're gonna have to wear masks. I heard from my daughter-in-law's sister, who's a teacher in Stamford, who said that there will be something set up where there will be mask breaks during the day for kids. I don't know how they're going to do that, but certainly the kids need to breathe. And I know I volunteer at the Maritime Aquarium, and I have to wear a mask for 4 hours when I'm there, and it's tough. And everybody that comes there has to wear a mask. And you don't know when they're smiling, laughing, or crying.
Yeah.
I recently saw a little cartoon of a bunch of people sitting around a board meeting, and they all have masks on. And the director of the board said something like, okay, I want to know who just called me an asshole. You know, so there's advantages to having a mask, but so we'll see what happens. But I think that hopefully Stamford schools are moving in a positive direction. I do know that I have some family who have enrolled their kids in Kang School and so forth, but you know, that's not the answer. Most of our kids are not going to be able to, and families are not going to be able to afford $40,000 or $50,000 a year, whatever it costs to go there. I don't know. Anyway, that's my opinion.
Okay. Joe Raccanello. You're on.
We can't hear you, Joe.
Microphone's not working, Joe.
You have to unmute.
You're unmuted, but your microphone's not working.
Yeah. Waited all this time to speak, and now your mic's telling you can't speak.
Oh, well.
Check out your system.
Apparently he's got a problem.
You don't even see him.
He's there.
See his head.
Maybe he don't look like him.
No, he's not on mute.
Joe, are you able to unmute yourself?
He is.
He is unmuted.
Oh, yeah.
No, he's not.
He's got a problem with his computer.
Yeah.
Is it a remote learning?
Maybe Joe just has a problem, period. I don't know.
Remote learning.
Yeah.
Who's next?
Me?
No, you're not working, Joe.
Joe, why don't you log out and log back in again? Do a refresh.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
What are the thoughts of having the money, instead of it going to the school, go to the parents so they can move their kids if they want to? And should the money go to the parents when the schools are closed? What happens to that? Just, I'm confused about it because I don't see how it can be put into effect. So, just a thought.
Joe, I think you point out an element. You pay tax to creating a fund for the education. Since you are not educating anybody, you want the money back. I don't think you are so far from a question that could be debated seriously, because could be the money pay for private teaching, for buying computer, other things. I think is a valid question.
But
Quality kids?
Yeah, it's a valid question. You know, if you are like, I got a rebate from my insurance of a car because I didn't use the roads. Why I should not rebate on my tax because I'm not using the school system?
So I have a question on this. So my question is that this is wishful thinking, because people who send their children to private schools they still pay taxes from which public schools are funded, and they never get a refund. So the same thing will.
But this is a voluntary, is an imposed decision. You know, you close the shop, you know, you cannot get the service. It's not a question of somebody in the private sector can decide to send the private sector. It's different.
Yeah. So that's why, and besides, tax is handled by a government, and they make decision, not us. It's just a matter of voting. So it will never.
Just because the kids are not attending school doesn't mean that the funding is building up in the city's treasury. The teachers are still being paid. The buildings still have to be maintained.
Yeah.
They're still buying the books.
Yeah.
So I don't think there is any money to give back to the taxpayer.
That's
Does
right.
anyone disagree with what I just said?
No.
I'd like to interject something there said a little
Go
earlier.
ahead, Lloyd.
And one was that when I served on the Fair Rent Commission here in the city many years ago, I found out that if the government made direct payments on rent to individuals, rent didn't get paid. The money was, as soon as you have an option of allocating the money how you see fit, it never went to what it was originally purposed for. So I don't think giving money directly to individuals or even parents, even in education, to be used for education will necessarily get to education. For the most part. Now, the school voucher programs, which Jack was talking about, is a very good program. It enables, well, it's a competitive system to the public schools. And I think it has improved the overall education for all the students, including the public school ones who don't get the charter vouchers. When there's a monopoly in education, especially, then you find that the quality of education that the students have drops precipitously. And it gets to the point where sometimes I think they're functional illiterates graduating high school.
Bill Johnston, you're up. Bill, are you still want to talk?
He's
Okay. And
Joe,
I see that Joe has re-entered.
Yeah, this is Steve. Can I ask a question? Maybe
Sure.
somebody knows the answer.
Yep.
We're talking about getting the schools back in. Are the teachers being paid their full salaries while the schools are closed, basically?
Yes.
Then you want to get the schools back in session, you just say, hey, sorry, schools are closed, you're not getting paid. And watch what would happen.
Yeah. That would be a real incentive.
Yeah.
But it is. I doubt that it is.
No, it'll never happen, but.
Well, you got the union for that.
Yeah.
Right.
If I could interject.
Yeah.
By the way, the teachers and staff.
Bill Johnson is unmuted.
Yeah. Hey, Jack, I just wanted to add, I think you're absolutely right in giving it to the parents because it would certainly help the liquor stores.
Yeah, you got a point there, Bill.
Which is a matter of fact, are essential businesses to stay open when others are closed.
You can't go to your religious institution. That's severely restricted.
Yeah.
For the last few minutes, I'm going to go on to a third subject, the violence that we've seen across the country. And we've seen some of it here in Stamford. And my question to you is that do you think that our police have been out of line in trying to, in particular, they were blocking the street. I think it was Broad Street. in front of Target, and they had blockaded the school. The police gave them orders to get out of the street several times. The orders were disobeyed, and then they arrested several people, perhaps forcefully. Any comments?
Yeah, I applaud that. I think you have to nip it right in the bud as soon as, you know, they call peaceful protest. Well, I haven't seen a peaceful protest yet. It's anarchy, and any other word for it is nonsense. And you have to nip it in the bud and get those people off the street when they're sitting there looting and burning buildings and trashing police cars of all things. They're not peacefully protesting. And as far as I'm concerned, whatever it takes to get them off the street.
Yeah,
Agree completely.
I agree with that.
Agreed.
We're talking about Stamford, though. I don't think you've seen
How are you,
any or a lot of that in Stamford, Jerry. So, you know, we're trying to focus on Stamford here.
In Stamford, the only unlawful act that I'm aware of is blocking a street. Although they may have tried to pull down a statue. I'm not sure.
Well, they'll have to applaud the police stepping in and nipping it in the bud. And that's probably why Stamford is pretty peaceful right now.
Yeah.
Joe, this is Steve. I can't raise my hand, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I'd like to. I'm the one that doesn't have a blue hand. Two points. One, I agree there's every right to peaceful protest, which I believe they were given the right because they marched from, I think, Home Depot over to the police station.
Yes.
And then they wanted to go further. At some point, their right of free speech and to demonstrate interferes with everyone else's right to free passage and to go about their business. So somewhere there's got to be a line.
Yeah.
And if I read the article right, it seemed like about half the people that were there were not from Stamford.
Oh,
Yeah.
that is
They were from like Norwalk, Bridgeport, you know.
Yeah.
There's an outside influence going on.
Thank you for that.
There is a tendency to import rabble-rousers in all of these protests, it seems like. And
yeah, it's coordinated on the internet and financed by somebody.
About George Soros?
George Soros.
Oh, no.
No, by Trump.
Yeah.
I just wanted to comment. I got my microphone all set now. That, you know, related to education and the school system, as some of you may know, my wife, before she retired, was a school teacher, and her specialty was with the young kids in the kindergarten area and first grade, second grade, that kind of thing. And occasionally, you know, we get into this discussion. I think all of us here today, from what I've been hearing, we all agree that under an ideal situation, all the kids really belong in school. The only real question is the safety aspect. And, you know, anytime we talk about safety, it's not just the kids, of course. It's a very, as everyone knows, a very complicated area because you have the not just the kids, but the teachers and the support staff, like the custodians and the cafeteria workers and the bus drivers. And there are unions involved. It's just a very complicated kind of situation. And I think too, you know, in this kind of a discussion, it depends on the age too. So if you told a 5 or 6 year old, for example, not to get too close to the next person, maybe it might take them a while to really understand why that command is being given. You know, whereas a high school person, you know, wouldn't think twice about it. They know exactly what you're talking about. So I think the age in discussing this subject means a lot as well, you know, because the younger kids, you know, a lot of it's very innocent. And they just, you know, if you told them to line up and to keep 6 feet apart, you know, they might be 3 feet apart, or they might go up and tap the guy in front of them in line, you know, on the shoulder without even thinking about the virus. So, I think, in this discussion on education, there are a lot of aspects, of course, and I'm sure we all want to see the kids back in school. And, safety, I guess you just can't underscore it enough. I mean, we just need the kids to be safe. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, but we have to keep in mind that staying at home doesn't ensure safety. The suicide rate of teenagers has gone way up during the school shutdown. So
Yeah.
social interaction is a real benefit.
Well, that is a point to consider, Joe. That is a good point that you brought up, but it's just kind of the topic where, I'm sure all the parents would love to have the kids, and now, we haven't even, I mean, there are all the other aspects as well, like some of the kids getting a free breakfast, a free lunch, a free milk. There's the nutritional aspect related to the whole process as well and then of course you got the other aspect that, if the kids are home, somebody has to watch the kids. That's another consideration, and it makes it very tough for employment.
Right. Yeah, and that means that the parents can't work if they have jobs.
Right.
Yeah. Any other comments on that particular subject?
I'd like to ask Steve a question. Did it get too cold for your background picture to stay outside?
No, they said there was nobody there, so I decided I'd show the scene with lots of people.
Okay, going to move on to another subject. How do you feel about cutting back on funding for police? And what that brought that to mind is I just picked up a copy of the Wall Street Journal, and it has a picture of Police Chief Carmen Best announcing her resignation at City Hall. This is the Seattle police chief. They've cut the budget in half. They've cut her salary, and this is not obviously an isolated incident. There are police chiefs across the country that are resigning. There are policemen that are taking early retirement. Do we think that one of the responses to the mob violence is cutting funding for the police department?
It's when you find out that they don't respond. I just saw an article where one of the players on the PGA golf tour this weekend had his car broken into while he was playing in the tournament. Called the police when he found it, called 911. They said, sorry, we're too busy, we can't handle it.
Yeah, and that's going to be...
Without police, I guess we're free to, there's nobody going to be around to arrest you if you commit a crime, so you don't have to worry about it. Go do whatever you want.
I would like to thank James Monroe High School for the comment that I shall never forget over its entry door. It's from William Pitt: where the law ends, tyranny begins.
That's true.
Cutting the police force could be, and probably will be, an incentive for breaking into stores and for violence, for stealing.
Go back to the Wild West. Everybody will end up having an armed nation to protect themselves.
Yeah.
Because one of the functions of the police, and basically their main function, is to protect the inhabitants under their jurisdiction from both violence and to protect their property. Now, the problem is that the police in the big cities have abandoned the property part of their charter. And but that will lead to an armed situation because stores can't be repeatedly broken into, looted. As that one woman said repeatedly on television, that we deserve it because if we want it, we should have it. And if we can't afford it, we should just go get it, take it from the stores because this is part of our repatriation for the slavery that we have. And this is the 619 project results. And what you end up with is what they call anarchy, where everybody is a law unto themselves. And that's a breakdown of society in its totality. And you end up like we will in Mexico. Look at the Mexican model,
Just a minute.
where the drug cartels control vast swaths of the country, and they dictate everything. And if you try to go against the cartels,
You're dead.
Jack, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I did. I think when you look at the police and Stamford police, even if you look at the union rules and what they have to live under and how much it costs the city because of those union rules, and you wouldn't need to cut hardly any. You probably would need to cut it all if those unions were tamed. And there's nobody anywhere that seems to have the guts to even go against the union. I mean, they've got rules that make absolutely no sense. I mean, you call a guy that's home, ask him a question, and you have to pay him for 4 hours. Things that don't make sense. And you saw in the papers the amount of money some of them make for overtime. Physically, they couldn't do that. It just wouldn't work. But they get paid just to pass by a scene and look at it for 4 hours. So my comment before we talk about cutting and taking good people off the street, we ought to look at how the next contract's going to come up and what do we got to do to tame it. Thank you.
Yeah, that brings to mind the Yankee Institute. And so much of that is, there's legislation that really has to be changed to get the unions under control.
As far as police, cutting police, New York City could very well be an example. It seems to me, and I don't have statistics, but it's pretty obvious in the news. The moment de Blasio eliminated that plainclothes group of police who were to be proactive in terms of preventing shootings and other crimes rather than reactive, the number of shootings in the city has gone up enormously, and it seems to coincide exactly with his eliminating that part of the department, which I think was terrible.
It's true.
There's another aspect of defunding the police, is that, like in Seattle, they're going to eliminate 1,100 positions. Now, the union rules and civil service pretty much says that that seniority counts. So now, insidious effect of this is that the longer term, that is the policemen who have the most seniority, are practically all Caucasian. And so that the new people who they hired in the last couple of years are more diverse, lots of minorities. They're the ones that are going to get laid off. So instead of ensuring racial diversity in the police department, they're going back to segregation and how they're going to be all Caucasian again because of seniority. And this is the unintended consequence, so to speak, of defunding the police.
But the question here is a hypothetical question. Is the police an important element to maintain a correct society? Or is the society able to police itself without having aggression in a police department? Look at the examples in London. London, the police bobby doesn't have an army. You know, we have a different culture here. Police is like the sheriff in the Wild West. We have perpetuated this element. The police can do whatever they want. And I don't think it's right. And you talk a police in Stamford is 2 people, 3 every one person every 5 lives outside Stamford. So I think it has to be within the community.
Okay.
No, we have, it's now 11:15. Do you want to continue or shall we just call it a week?
I want to bring up one more subject, and then, if that's okay.
Yeah, be my guess.
Okay. And this one is the president's fiscal powers keeps growing. And when Trump made his latest move in extending funding to people, unemployment benefits and several other things, Nancy Pelosi responded that the power of the purse begins in the House. And I'm going to read a couple of sentences. That, of course, is what we've taught in high school, but lately it doesn't reflect reality. Presidents of both parties have been siphoning power from Congress for decades, and Mr. Trump has been especially aggressive in the fiscal sphere. Indeed, the erosion of fiscal checks and balances might be one of the least appreciated legacies. More important than the past week's executive measure was the Supreme Court's vote a week earlier, 5-4, allowing construction to continue on Mr. Trump's wall with Mexico while litigation over its legality proceeds. Any comments on?
Yeah.
Should we be putting limits on the presidential power to spend money?
This is Steve. One of my first comments is, why is Congress out on vacation? I mean, take a look at the amount of time that Congress takes vacation and how many times is it during some kind of a crisis or, a situation where they should be acting in there, and especially in today's environment, they've got to change the rules. You've got video conferencing. They don't even use it. I mean, you can work from wherever now.
Yep.
Get the job done. Don't blame the president for taking whatever action he felt when you're not doing any action on your own.
Good point.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that
I agree too.
I think that all the branches have tried to infringe upon the responsibilities of other branches. For example, the judicial is trying to legislate, make laws. The executive branch, as you said, is trying to make up for what the legislative branch is not doing. And the legislative branch is trying to take over the executive branch. The whole thing is, they ought to get back and read the Constitution. I don't know if any of them have.
True.
Well, Congress has given the executive branch this kind of power over the purse over many years, over many laws. And this is just really maybe the culmination of this transfer of power that's happened. And then they can holler at Congress, hey, you're taking away our power of the purse. But however, we gave the executive the power of the purse, and he's just exercising it. And this is going on for at least four presidencies and maybe more than 4. It's always been that way. Outside of war, wartime is something else.
Yeah, that's different. But you've seen what Trump has done recently, and you may recall that Obama said, "I have a pen and I have a phone," and and he used it.
Yeah, we seem to forget what happened before.
Obama wrote more executive orders in the same time frame than Trump by a huge margin. And just like you said, he made a statement, I have a pen and I have a phone. Didn't hesitate to.
One of your biggest issues of contention here is the DACA situation, which Obama created, I believe, by executive order.
Mm-hmm.
And now you've got the court saying, well, you can't undo it, even though, it was not done by Congress. So they've established that protocol, I guess, over the years.
You're absolutely right, and he did it, and it's a purview of the legislative branch to
But the problem,
legislate immigration policy, and
John,
they haven't done it. So
That's
the president's taking it over.
Passed the DACA problem back to Congress, and Congress did nothing.
Yeah. And
Joe,
Obamacare was done executive order.
the point is this one here, the conflict between executive power and the branch of other things is there is a completely lack of a synchrony between the executive power and the Congress. The Congress is re-elected every 2 years, an alternative way of executive power. If they both were synchronized at the beginning, the winning Congress and winning executive power make up a budget for 4 years with a contingency, and that goes for 4 years without no problem. That's an element of a 1-2 years change conduce this war of a tag of a rope. Just basically, one day one and one day the others. So we have a system that is not conducive to a proper budget proposal, a budget management.
The other problem is we have a president that can only get elected twice, and we have Congress and senators that can get elected for 50 years, and you can't tell me they're still in touch with their constituency. The original founders, I believe, did not foresee the politicians as being careers. They were temporary.
You're right.
They were temporary. You do your duty, and you go back and you live amongst the people. That's not the way it is anymore.
I think any candidate for president that really pushes for term limits for Congress would get a lot of votes.
None from Congress.
Yeah.
That was
in effect, voting to put themselves out of a job. But I think that it would be good for the country. The number one priority for every congressman is to get reelected.
That's right. That's what they do. The day after they get elected, they're
Let me call you back, may I?
Yeah, don't call me back.
Okay, gentlemen, it is now 20 after 11. I think I will call it a week.
Very good.
I thank Joe for a very interesting series of discussions.
And I thank everybody for the participation. Everyone got involved, and that is what a discussion group, that's the way it should be.
And we'll let you know what's on the agenda for next week. I don't know myself.
Everybody is invited for spaghetti next week.
Yeah.
BYO, bring your own spaghetti.
Our virtual spaghetti dinner.
Virtual spaghetti.
Before you hang up, Steve.
Yes.
Did you get a note about Bob Robbins?
No, I did not.
He's moving to North Carolina, just to let you know.
Okay.
Okay.
That's all.
All right.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas.
Bye.